Hi, everyone. You know that feeling when you're waiting for someone to say something and the silence gets heavier the longer it lasts? And you start filling that silence with your own words, your own explanations, your own versions of what they might be thinking. But what if the silence isn't what you think it is? There's something happening in that space, in that gap between what was done to you and what hasn't been said, something more complex than you've been allowing yourself to see, something that doesn't fit into the neat categories of apology or explanation or confession. Stay with me because where this goes might surprise you. So there's this title, They Ignored You and Hurt You, but This Is What They Want to Say to You. Confession. And there's a promise built into that, a promise that you're about to get answers, that you're about to understand, that someone's going to finally explain themselves and give you the closure you've been seeking. But what if I told you that's not what's actually available here? What if the thing that needs to be heard, the message that's trying to come through, it's not from them at all? My stomach just tightened typing that. Wait, let me approach this differently without revealing everything at once. There can be this pattern people fall into after being ignored or hurt, where they become obsessed with understanding, with knowing why, with hearing the explanation or apology or confession that will make it all make sense. And in that obsession, in that fixation on what they might want to say, something gets missed. Something important. Something that has nothing to do with them and everything to do with you. Can you feel that? That pull to know what they're thinking versus the resistance to looking at what you're avoiding? Because when someone ignores you, when they hurt you, when they leave things unsaid, there's pain in that, real pain. And there's also an opportunity that gets obscured when you're too focused on them, on their intentions, on what they might or might not want to say. My hands are freezing right now. So let me tell you something without telling you the whole thing. There's a confession that needs to happen, but it's not theirs. There's something that needs to be said, but it's not coming from outside you. There's a truth that's trying to emerge, but you've been looking in the wrong direction for it. And the more you focus on what they want to say, the more you miss what you need to hear from yourself. The more you wait for their confession, the more you avoid your own. The more you seek their explanation, the more you postpone your own understanding. Does that make sense? That idea that the confession you're seeking might not be the one you actually need. Because here's what I'm noticing without spelling it out completely. When someone ignores you and hurts you, there's usually a story you tell yourself about why, about what it means, about what's wrong with you, or what you did, or what you failed to be. And that story, that narrative, you've constructed in the absence of their words. It might be doing more damage than their actual silence. It might be creating more pain than their actual actions. Have you noticed that? How the meaning you make of being ignored can hurt more than the ignoring itself? Tell me in the comments if this resonates. My jaw is clenched so tight I can feel it in my whole face. Wait, I need to be careful here. I need to say this in a way that doesn't give everything away, but doesn't leave you lost either. There's something about waiting for someone else's confession that keeps you stuck, that keeps you in their story, that keeps you focused on them instead of on you. And while you're waiting, while you're imagining what they might want to say, while you're hoping for the explanation that will set you free, you're not actually free. You're bound to them, to their silence, to their choices, to their version of events. And there's something else available, something that doesn't require their participation, something that doesn't need their confession or explanation or apology to be real. but it's mysterious. It's not obvious. It's not the thing you've been looking for. My throat feels so constricted right now. So here's what I can say without saying everything. The confession that matters most isn't about why they ignored you. It's not about what they were thinking when they hurt you. It's not about their regrets or their realizations or their belated understanding of what they lost. The confession that actually changes things. It's quieter than that, more personal than that, more uncomfortable than that. It's the thing you've been avoiding while focusing on them. The truth you haven't wanted to face while waiting for their truth. The acknowledgement that's been trying to surface while you've been fixated on their unspoken words. And I can't tell you what that confession is for you. I can't name it. I can't make it explicit because it's yours. It's personal. It's specific to your situation and your patterns and your particular way of avoiding what needs to be seen. But you might know what I'm pointing to. You might feel it, that thing you don't want to admit, that reality you've been skirting around, that truth that would change everything if you let yourself really see it. My shoulders just released a little bit. Wait, let me tell you about ignored without explaining too much. When someone ignores you, when they leave you in silence, there's a message in that. But it's not always the message you think it is. It's not always about you being unworthy or unimportant or not enough. Sometimes the message is simpler, more obvious, more about them than about you. But you can't see it because you've made it mean something about your value, about your worthiness, about whether you matter. And in making it mean that, in personalizing their behavior, in taking their silence as commentary on your worth, you give them power they might not have even claimed. You create a story they might not even recognize. You build an entire narrative around their absence that has more to do with your wounds than their intentions. Have you noticed that pattern? How you fill silence with your worst fears about yourself? Tell me in the comments. My chest feels heavy, like there's weight pressing down. So the hurt part, let me sit with that without revealing everything. When someone hurts you, there's the actual action, the thing they did or didn't do. And then there's the meaning you make of it. The story you tell about what it says about you, about them, about relationships, about the world. And those two things, the action and the meaning, they're not the same. The action is what happened. The meaning is what you're creating from what happened. And sometimes, not always, but sometimes the meaning creates more suffering than the action itself. Because you can recover from being ignored. You can heal from being hurt. But if the meaning you've made is that you're unlovable, that you're not enough, that you'll always be abandoned, that's harder to recover from. That's what keeps the wound open long after the person who created it has moved on. Does that distinction land with you between what happened and what you're making it mean? My hands just stopped being cold. Wait, I'm dancing around something here. Something central. Something that needs to be said but can't be said directly because you need to discover it yourself. So let me try this way. The confession you're waiting for, the thing they supposedly want to say, what if it's not going to give you what you think it will? What if hearing their explanation or apology or regret wouldn't actually heal the wound? What if it would just shift the wound, rearrange it, give you different things to obsess over? Because I've seen this pattern where someone finally gets the confession they've been waiting for, the explanation, the apology, the admission of wrongdoing, and instead of feeling free, they feel stuck differently. Now they're processing the explanation. Now they're deciding if the apology is enough. Now they're managing the relationship to the confession instead of to the person. The fixation just shifts. It doesn't dissolve. My jaw just unclenched without me trying. So here's what I'm sitting with in a mysterious way. There's something you need to confess to yourself, something you've been avoiding by focusing on what they might need to confess to you, something that would change your entire relationship to what happened if you let yourself see it clearly. And that's something, that confession, it's not comfortable. It might not make you feel better immediately. It might actually make you feel worse before it makes you feel free. But it's real. It's true. It's what's actually operating underneath all the waiting and wondering and imagining what they want to say. And I can't tell you what it is. I can only point in its direction. I can only create space for you to notice it if you're willing. I can only suggest that maybe, just maybe, the confession you're seeking from them is covering up the confession you need from yourself. Can you feel that? That resistance to looking, that preference for staying focused on them instead of turning inward. My throat just opened and breathing is easier. Wait, let me try one more angle without giving it all away. When you're ignored and hurt by someone, when you're left without explanation or closure, there's usually a reason you stay focused on them, a reason you keep imagining their confession, a reason you keep waiting for their words, and that reason might be that their confession, their explanation, their apology, it would let you off the hook. It would make it about them. It would confirm that you're the victim and they're the perpetrator, and the story is simple and clear. But what if it's not simple? What if it's not clear? What if there's something in how you showed up, how you participated, how you contributed that you don't want to look at? Not because you're to blame, not because you deserved to be ignored or hurt, but because seeing your part would require you to grow in a way that's uncomfortable. Have you noticed that? How sometimes staying focused on what they did wrong is easier than examining what you could do differently? Tell me in the comments if this lands. My whole body just relaxed a little. So the confession, the thing they supposedly want to say, let me be mysterious but direct about this. Whatever you think they want to confess, it's probably not what you're imagining. People are complex. Motivations are layered. What looks like ignoring might be protecting. What feels like hurting might be flailing. What seems like silence might be not knowing what to say. And none of that excuses it. None of that makes it okay. But all of that makes it more complicated than the simple narrative of they're bad and I'm good and they owe me an explanation. Because maybe they do owe you an explanation. Maybe they should apologize. Maybe they need to acknowledge what they did. But whether they do or don't, you're still here. You still have to live with yourself. You still have to decide how to move forward. And that decision, that movement forward, it doesn't actually require their confession. It requires yours. Whatever it is you've been avoiding seeing, whatever truth you've been skirting, whatever acknowledgement you've been postponing by staying focused on them. My shoulders are completely relaxed now. So here's what I can say without revealing the whole mystery. The confession that will actually set you free isn't the one you're waiting for. It's the one you've been avoiding. And until you're willing to face it, until you're ready to see it, until you can acknowledge it, you'll keep waiting, keep hoping, keep imagining what they want to say. Because that waiting, that hoping, that imagining, it's a distraction from something harder, something more real, something that would actually change things if you let it. And I'm not going to tell you what it is. I'm not going to name it for you because that would rob you of the discovery, of the insight of the moment when you finally see it and everything clicks into place. But I will tell you this, it's available right now, in this moment, if you're willing to stop looking at them and start looking at you. If you're willing to stop waiting for their confession and start making your own, can you feel it trying to surface, that truth you've been avoiding, that acknowledgement that would change everything? My chest feels completely open now. The truth isn't in the drama, it's in the breath. Not warnings, just awareness. Stay grounded, stay here.